Without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to say good evening and welcome to the show. I want to thank you, as always, for spending your Thursday nights with me. As I always say, I'm truly humbled. Of all the things you could be doing, you choose to spend your Thursday nights here with me. And I do my best to try to quench your thirst on these thirsty Thursday evenings. My show is called Omit the Logic. This shit makes sense. No sense, but I got something to say. My name is Hank Batiste. I'm your host tonight, and the voices in my head are bewildered, flabbergasted, and at my wits' end. It's one thing after another, after another, after another, after another. If I told you what was happening this week, it sounds like I've been repeating my shows from the last 2 to 4 weeks. Truth be told, I don't have the patience for politicians with their posturing, their procrastination, and they're putting their own political ambitions before the needs of the people. But I'm going to try to deal with some of that a little later. Um, it's impossible to do any type of show and talk about current events without talking about COVID. Now, COVID 21 is almost headed into COVID 22. And when I hear others start to refer to it, I'm reminded that I've been saying this from Jump Street. You know, they try to play this off like it's this virus and we can get in front of it and this, that, and the other. But as long as people are allowing themselves to be used by the virus is going to mutate. And that's what we see happening. So I said it last week. They've talked about the Delta variant being aggressive. There's also a Gamma variant. And now they're talking about a Mu variant. Um, but what really got me is now I see COVID 21 starting to take our young children, our young adults, and those of us that are immunocompromised. Today, I heard a young lady talk about how her and her family traveled after the government, or the Trump Republicans, bullied the government into giving the all clear too soon to those of us who had been vaccinated. They said that we should be okay, we didn't have anything to worry about, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This young lady and her family, and I say young lady, she's probably in her 30s or 40s, so she's young enough to be my daughter. Her mom was 66. This young lady and her family, her mother, her mother suffered from rheumatoid arthritis. Now, most people think of arthritis as just those changes that happen with the aging process. Rheumatoid arthritis is more aggressive and it's considered an immune deficiency disease. And by immune deficiency, what they mean is it basically puts a stranglehold on your immune system. So you're more vulnerable to things, organisms, diseases, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Unfortunately, her and her family went to Mississippi. Now, I say this because a lot of my friends, family, and classmates, and even my granddaughter lives in Mississippi, right outside of New Orleans. Mississippi is so close; we're about 45 minutes away. So you can buy a nice spread in Mississippi for little or nothing, and it's good kind of country living. But unfortunately, Mississippi only has about a 30%, if that is not exaggerated. Mississippi has about a 30% vaccination rate. Long story short, Her mom went down there, and even though she was vaccinated, she's suffering from rheumatoid arthritis. And I keep giving you this disclaimer of rheumatoid arthritis simply because I don't want people to say, well, why even get vaccinated if I'm going to get the disease? Her mom not only got COVID, she died. But what struck me about the case was not that her mom was vaccinated and died. That was sad indeed. Her mom was 66. Otherwise, her mom was in good health. Half of the people that I deal with on Facebook are in their 60s. You know, damn it, I'm in my 60s, and some of you folks are older than me. Most of you are, but my demographics runs from people in their 20s to people into some of the people in their 70s, you know, so early 70s. So I've got a wide range, age range of demographics far as my listening audience is concerned. So that really struck me. Um, what really impressed me is this young lady wrote her mama's obituary, not only to pay homage to her mom, but to remind those people who are not vaccinated that they were complicit in her mom's debt. When I get excited, it's hard for me to pronounce these words. And I'm excited because I'm sad. Nobody should lose their life because of the behavior of others. And until the government starts to look at this whole vaccination thing like drunk driving, you understand? When you drive, if you stay home, the only person you're going to hurt is yourself. If you drive and you get behind the wheel, you come out in public, then you run the risk of hurting others. That's what she meant when she said that those people that are unvaccinated and refuse to wear a mask was complicit in her mother's death. I just wanted to say that before I got into the meat and potatoes of the show. Um, I saw something that we're averaging 150,000, over 150,000 new cases a week in a 7-day period. So we have this big spike. We're back up to what numbers were around the time we start going into this. And I'm going to say this, the next time that we are quarantined or we're the government shuts us down, it won't be the government. It'll be a self-imposed hibernation. So do what you need to do. You don't have to go out and get no 14 boxes of toilet paper and hand sanitizer, but you need to be, as we go into these cold months, this next quarantine, this next hibernation is going to be self-imposed. It is what it is. Tonight, we're going to talk about our democracy. I'm tired of talking about this. I want to talk about things that really affect us personally, but it can't be ignored because there are a few things that are happening as we speak and some things that are going to happen in the not so distant future that we need to be cognizant and conscious of. So we're going to talk about this ongoing coup in comparison to Haiti, Nicaragua, Afghanistan, because if the things that are happening in America was happening in Afghanistan, we talk about the Taliban and what it's doing to its own people, but we don't talk about what America is doing to its own people. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We see what happened in Haiti. If this was happening in Nicaragua, we would call it for what it is, a coup. And lastly, I'm going to draw a comparison between um, Joe Biden and Jim Clyburn, the senior black who's supposed to have Biden's ear from congressman from South Carolina. In drawing this comparison, I'm going to talk about what's wrong with the political process. So tonight's show is called To the Republic That Is Our Democracy. I'm Hank Batiste. Let's omit the logic. This shit makes no sense. So when I talk about what this shit makes no sense, when I think about omitting the logic, I'm reminded we're 1 week away from all of the devastation of Ida, one of the worst storms ever. And last night I see a billionaire and his chosen few, his entourage, lift off from the Kennedy Space Center just up the road and go into space on a pleasure trip. This billionaire and these people are doing a sightseeing trip or tour of the Earth's atmosphere. Are you freaking kidding me? You know what I say? Fuck out of here. Then, when I think of things that makes no sense, I look at fences again being installed around the U.S. Capitol. And Congress is taking a recess because Trump's disciples have decided that they're going to have a rally to support those people, those few people. Now, let's call it for what it is. If they say there was 10,000 people out there, I say they miscounted by 20,000. Just looking at the sheer physics of how many people occupy a space or area, I would guesstimate that there was between 25 and 35,000 people on the National Mall in front of the Capitol and to and from on January 6, 2021. So let's use their numbers. Let's say that they said that it was only 10,000 people. Well, folks, certainly less than 1,000, somewhere around 500 people have been arrested thus far. So now they're about to have another rally, and Congress is taking a recess because they're afraid that the same thing is going to happen. My question is this, before I say fuck out of here, my question is this. When was the last time you saw a Black Lives Matter rally? When was the last time you saw a Black Lives Matter rally? All we hear is how Biden has failed the Afghanis and this influx of people flooding the southern border. Yet the George Floyd bill is dead in a proverbial congressional stalemate waters. Voting right restrictions are being pushed through 49 states. And again, yet the George Floyd bill is dead in the proverbial congressional stalemate waters. A woman's right to choose whether or not to have an abortion, even in cases of rape and incest, is being taken away as we speak. And yet, the George Floyd bill is dead in the proverbial congressional stalemate waters. It doesn't take my Creole powers to tell you that by 2022, it'll be easier to buy marijuana, drugs, sex, and a gun, because these are things that Pookie and Ray Ray is not selling on the corner. Shit, Matt Gaetz has been indicted for sex trafficking. Charles Stanley, a televangelist, is a CEO of a marijuana company, making money hand over fist. So the little money that Pookie and Ray Ray is making, so I'm starting to wonder, congressmen are selling sex, preachers and congressmen are buying into the marijuana industry. We know Congress hasn't been enforcing guns since George Washington chopped down his father's cherry tree. So by 2022, think about this. It will be easier to buy drugs, to buy sex, and to buy a gun than it will be to vote or drive while black. And yes, the George Floyd bill will still be dead in the goddamn proverbial congressional stalemate waters. That's all I got to say about that. Let me move on. Joe and the Dems. Last week I gave Biden a B+. And it looks like from week to week I'm gonna have to grade him. So it seems like we're gonna be giving these weekly tests. This week his grade is slipping, it's dipping. Not because of how he handled Afghanistan or how he's handling the southern border. Biden's grade is slipping because he and the Dems remind me of the Saints back in the day. The Saints would have a 14 or 21 point lead going into the third quarter. And instead of playing to win and running up the score and taking all hope from their opponents, they get complacent. So Biden and the Dems are a little too complacent. Instead of stacking the Supreme Court to combat this right-wing white fright policies, these white fright policies that are being rammed down our throats and are allowing the Trumpublicans to score, the lead has eroded, folks, and it's slipping. President Biden cannot be as clueless as he pretends to be to Manchin's real agenda. We keep hearing this, how they're going to come together and blase, blah, 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 but we're not seeing anything. We're not seeing any fruit of this labor. So they keep going back and forth with a number, $3 trillion for infrastructure, and now that IDA is over, it's down to I can't support 3 trillion, maybe 1.1 trillion. But the truth of the matter is, Manchin is sitting on his hand and not getting things done. And Schumer and Biden are doing nothing to put a foot with a good Lord splitting to make him get with the program. By the same token, I draw a parallel or a comparison to Joe Clyburn, Jim Clyburn from South Carolina. I see this black man, and he talks about how he has Biden's ear and how he does this. And I look at my homeboy from Louisiana, and he's talking about how he's one of Biden's senior advisors and what have you. But they cannot be as oblivious to Biden sitting on his hand and allowing this game to slip away. The Dems have to be, if I see it, if you see it, If the media is starting to talk about it, if other great minds are starting to discuss this issue, then why can't the Dems? And more importantly, why aren't they doing something about it? Because I promise you, if we are sitting where we're sitting right now, this time next year, there will be no Democratic lead or advantage in the Senate. There will be no Democratic majority or lead in the House of Representatives. And once Kevin McCarthy and Moscow Mitch takes over, they're going to run this shit down our throats. And Joe Biden's going to be a lame duck president for the next 2 years. And the next thing you know, we're going to have another Republican president. It is what it is. Folks, I feel like somebody is watching my podcast because suddenly I hear the media echoing the things that I say week in, week out on my show. Suddenly I hear the media starting to call this a coup. Bob Woodward, the guy that wrote Watergate, wrote a book, and he called this a coup. Former President George W. Bush echoed what I've been saying week after week. At a 9/11 ceremony, George Bush said, "We need to forget about Afghanistan. We've got our own democracy to worry about. Our democracy is in serious trouble." Powers to be have allowed the big lie to fester and gain ground. And now more and more people are gravitating to the Trumpublicans, to Trump and his disciples. They're not doing so because they believe the lie. They're doing so because people gravitate towards who they see is going to win. Once upon a time, before the War of 1812, people in New Orleans were trilingual. Whatever flag was flying in Jackson Square, that was the language of the day because things were just that volatile. So people follow the power. People see the Dems not doing anything. People see the Dems dilly-dallying around in a line of Trump pubs to come back. So they're losing faith. Things have hit in Bob's book, he talked about how Mike Pence, struggled with what he was going to do when he went to Congress on January the 6th. He talked about Trump being like a second grader and saying, "Well, Mike, if you don't do what I said, you're not going to be my friend anymore." He talked about General Milley and other generals contacting Nancy Pelosi, members of Congress, foreign governments, because he saw delusional Donnie become unhinged. My question to General Milley is, when was he not unhinged? But Mike Pence, being from Indiana and being a vice president who only served one term, he turned to another vice president who only served one term, who just happened to be from Indiana, but who does not have a reputation for being the sharpest knife in the drawer. Enter Dan Quayle. Yeah, that's right. Dan Quayle. So Mike Pence called Dan Quayle, and Dan Quayle, I don't know if he was, but he put on the cape this day and he told Pence, to hell with what Trump say. You need to go up in there and listen to the parliamentarian, and you need to verify all of those votes, those delegates. The transfer of power must take place. So, to one of my Facebook friends, whom I shall leave nameless, who refused to see Dan's actions as being heroic, I'm saying think about the consequences. Think about the person. Now, people don't want to give Dan his just due, but my mom used to have a saying, and I won't even go there, but I'll say this: even a broken clock is right twice a day. And that's all I got to say about that. So, Dan Quayle, I salute you. You saved the day. No telling what would have happened if a divine power didn't touch him and give him that knowledge, because sometimes the message is not our own. It comes from a power much greater than us, and we're no more than the vessel that delivers it. Last thing I'm going to talk about is this whole white fright thing, because I feel like the media plays a role in it. The media either knowingly or unknowingly gives it legitimacy. It gives it oxygen. By talking about it, now instead of 200 people know, 200,000 people know. Instead of condemning it, they soften it. Instead of calling a domestic terrorist a terrorist, they call them white nationalists. And instead of calling a hateful group just that, they call them white nationalists. This disparity of how any other group is displayed or portrayed when they decide to exercise their rights to protest. It looks like they're coming down on these folks, but by the same token, they're not condemning them. Instead of calling a failed coup just what it was, they keep calling it an insurrection. That's like calling an amputation, oh, I just got a cut on my leg. No, you just lost your leg. Okay, we sewed it back on, but nonetheless, it was hanging by a thread. So the media plays an important role in what's going on. And they have to be. Why does it take General Milley? Why does it take Bob Woodward to talk about this being a coup and Trump being unhinged? Why is it taking so long to bring people like Matt Gaetz to justice? How many little girls did he sell? If I was accused of just soliciting a prostitute, I promise you, my name would be destroyed and I would have no future. This man is still in Congress. How many times must Trump be allowed to break the laws and face no punishment? And you wonder why they're so blazing and emboldened and why they follow him. So the media has to step up. We all have to step up. We have to stop allowing them to reshape the narrative and using the words that they use and call it for what it is. This was a failed coup attempt, but the coup continues. And this thing that we call our democracy is in serious trouble. So September the 18th, all I will say to you is be on the lookout, because these people have become so bold. These people have become so accustomed to not having to pay a price for their missteps that they may come at you, they may come at me, or they may do something, but they're cowards. So be on the lookout. January the 18th, I'm sorry. I keep wanting to call it January the 18th because I feel like on January the 6th, time stood still. So this whole bullshit is non-ending, and we're stuck right where we were on January the 6th. September the 18th, be on the lookout, watch you and yours, watch your back, protect yours, protect your neighborhoods. That's all I got to say about this. Let's put I have to get this organization together because we have to come together. There's strength in numbers. I can sit here and I can talk all night long, every week, week in, week out. But until we come together as a group and we show them the strength of our numbers, we can't make a difference. That's all I got for you tonight, folks. I keep thinking that people are listening. The powers to be are listening because they're starting to echo the things that I say week in and week out. So if they're listening, why don't they make a difference? As I always say, folks, don't be so afraid to die that you forget to live for a purpose. That's the true purpose of freedom. Before I go, I want to remind you guys, go to my YouTube channel. I'm going to post it on this video. But just in case you're wondering, how to get to my YouTube channel is this simple. HBJ MPA. HBJ is my initials. MPA is one of my credentials. Masters of Public Administration, Masters of Physician's Assistant. So HBJ MPA, Google that or search it on YouTube. You'll find my channel, but I'm going to post it right here. Go to my YouTube channel. In that lower right-hand corner, subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. It makes a difference. Give me some feedback. Tell me what resonated with you. Tell me what you want to hear more of. And look out for my Clubhouse. As I said in the beginning, I'm going to say it one more time. I'm going to be going to Clubhouse and I'm going to be posting some information. I'm going to be doing some, not quite a podcast, but it's a medium where we can do some back and forth. So you guys will get to participate in some of this. I haven't set it up yet. I haven't set up a channel. I haven't set up a time. So I'm going to be sending some posts out to you guys to find out what works best for you. With that, as always, in parting, I wish you love. I'll see you here next week. Same Baptiste time, same Baptiste place. Yeah, I'm going to wish you love 2 times tonight. Love, peace, and hair grease. I'm Hank Batiste. Omit the logic. This shit makes no sense. But I got something to say. I promise you it's true. I'm out of here.